NBC. Now to New York.
Madison Square Garden in New York, scene of Game 3 of the Eastern Conference semifinal series, the Atlanta Hawks and New York Knicks. And for the Hawks, the challenge as big as Mutombo's shoes, down 2-0. Marcus Camby seeks inspiration from the name of his sister on his shoes today. Mookie Blaylock must get the Atlanta offense untracked and stop Latrell Sprewell, who's been the star of the series so far. Inside Madison Square Garden, the 291st consecutive sellout, giving the Knicks a home court advantage rarely enjoyed by the Hawks in Atlanta. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Madison Square Garden. Tom Hammond with Bill Walton and Steve Snapper Jones. And Bill, you know, for a decade, you thought of the New York Knicks, you thought of pound the ball into Patrick Ewing, but no more, the new look Knicks.
Tom, thank goodness that the Knicks finally went out and got some offensive firepower in support of their gallant warrior, Patrick Ewing, who over the years has been the Hall of Fame performer, the guy who has done virtually everything. But this season, the numbers are down due to a combination of age, fatigue, injury, and a general deterioration of his offensive game. Then, game 1 of this series, it was all New York as Latrell Sprewell slashing, cutting to the hoop, opened the game up early, and there was nothing the Atlanta Hawks could do about it. Allen Houston had a monster game as well, beating the Hawk defenders off the dribble relentlessly. The rare dynamic duo seen here in combination, both guys playing very, very well together, something you don't see all that often in New York. The two guards for New York, Latrell Sprewell, consistent in game 1 and game 2. He has been the best Eastern Conference performer in game 1. Allen Houston was monster, career playoff high. Game 2, a very quiet game. Allen never got out of the blocks. The big key for the Knicks is not to try to force feed Patrick Ewing. Let the game come. He's actually a better player now, and the Atlanta Hawks, they're actually hoping that he stays in the game a lot longer right now.
In fact, Steve Smith said earlier he liked it better when Patrick Ewing was in the game for New York. But Steve, as Bill might say, for the Hawks, the story of the first 2 games was somebody make a shot, please. Steve Smith needs to get untracked.
No, that's true, Tom. And really, Steve Smith understands that this game is the series. They don't win today, this series is virtually over, and Steve Smith has to return to the form that he had in game 1. What he played to in game 2 is not acceptable. He is their big emotional player. He is their big clutch offensive player. So Steve Smith has to stand and deliver this afternoon.
All right, we're ready for Game 3 in the series between the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks from Madison Square Garden in New York as the Knicks look to take a commanding 3-0 lead over Atlanta. Patrick Ewing tells the Hawks, not in my house.
The NBA on NBC is brought to you by Original Coors. There's only one mile-high taste. Coors, the original. By the irresistible taste that makes you say, did somebody say McDonald's? And by Hertz. For business, for pleasure. Nobody does it exactly like Hertz.
On a rainy day in the Big Apple, Game 3 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Hawks and the Knicks. Atlanta with Long, Crawford, Mutombo, Blaylock, and Steve Smith shooting only 24% from the floor in this series. The New York Knicks with Larry Johnson, Kurt Thomas, Patrick Ewing, Charlie Ward at the point, and Allen Houston. Lenny Wilkens, the coach of the Atlanta Hawks, the NBA's all-time wins leader. The native of Brooklyn, New York, returning home. He said it's always a thrill to come back home. And the embattled Jeff Van Gundy, his job in peril all season, only now taking the number 8 team in the East, New York, into the conference semifinals and on the verge of taking a commanding 3-0 lead if they can win today. Atlanta 0-13 when trailing 2-0, while the New York Knicks have usually closed out the deal 18-2 when up 2-0. The officials, Ron Garretson, Steve Davies, and Joe DeRosa.
You know, Tom, there's history all over the place with those numbers, and I'm sure Lenny Wilkens did not show 0-13 to his team. He wants them to know that they got to get in the deal this afternoon, and it's got to start at the point with Blaylock and Steve Smith.
And in talking to Jeff Van Gundy before the game, he told us that the keys for the Knicks' success today would come down to rebounding to control the flow of the game, the energy level that the Knicks would play at, and then free throws, both attempts and possessions.
Offensive foul right out of the box, Patrick Ewing. And if they want to get Patrick Ewing out of the game, They better tell Grant Long not to take those charges.
Patrick Ewing, who has been just played with unbelievable foul difficulties in this series. On the opening possession in the first 10 seconds, a careless foul there.
Grant Long being guarded by Thomas. Long played 37 minutes in game 1 and did not score a point.
That
Steve
many.
Smith. And an offensive board by Long. Here's Crawford. Faked the three, pulls up from 15, kept it alive, and Mutombo has it. So 2 offensive rebounds already by Atlanta.
Well, what plagued Lenny Wilkins in game 2 is plaguing him right now. 3 shots, nothing down. He said they played a pretty good game when he looked at the video, but they didn't make shots.
Neither did Allen Houston on that one, coming off that 2-point performance in game 2 after 34 in game 1. Long, nice move, spins around Thomas to lay it in.
Rare transition opportunities for both teams, as these teams normally like to slug it out as they stagger into their half-court games.
Lenny Wilkins saying they had to rebound to run. That time they got the board and got the transition bucket. Thomas answers for New York.
Well, that's not a good matchup for Crawford. Crawford is not a power player. Kurt Thomas is. If you can't get Thomas outside that 10-foot mark, he's probably going to have a very effective afternoon.
It was Kurt Thomas who took virtually the first 4 shots of game 2 as the Knicks started the game 1 for 15. Turnover, Atlanta. Sloppy offense once again.
Pretty good pass by Blaylock. I thought just bad hands by Mutombo.
Now there's a breaking story.
Same spot for Kurt Thomas, and they're not giving him any help.
And 1. Kurt Thomas with a 3-point opportunity, and he has 2 quick buckets for the Knicks. Blaylock the foul.
In talking to the Knicks coaching staff about Kurt Thomas, they don't really want him thinking about offense early, but when you got Chris Crawford on, you might as well get to the hoop every single time. Chris is not a solid low post defender yet in just his 2nd year. But if Thomas can come out and work on the defense, the rebounding, and the little things, the offense will come later for him.
Thomas has all 5 Knick points. Blaylock a step on Ward, then pulls up and gets it to Mutombo against his fellow Georgetown alum Ewing. Lenny Wilkins telling us they've been double teaming him after 1 dribble and that Dikembe usually needs a couple to get in rhythm. Blaylock off the runner with 3 on the shot clock. His first basket.
And Blaylock does a couple of things very well when he's playing well. He scores inside out, and he really ignites their defense. So watch Blaylock on the ball and coming down to make steals. Back to Thomas.
Open man, Johnson for 3. Nice rotation by LJ, who gives the LJ sign as he goes down court. You like that, Bill?
Oh, I've been really waiting for that one as Lenny Wilkins calls a timeout. I just wish a guy like Larry Johnson, who has not had a good season up till the playoffs. The team barely qualified for the playoffs. He's spending all his time working on posing as opposed to skill development.
Did I remember you making a W with your arms as you walked out?
On the rare times that I did score. The good ball movement by the New York Knicks. Larry Johnson, who has worked relentlessly to develop a 3-point shot, needs a little bit more time on the shot as opposed to the pose, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the shot went in. I mean, you only pose when they go in.
What more do you want?
I want the next 10 to go in.
Oh, yeah, they are. You're a New York Knicks.
How about my Knicks, huh?
If you missed it on NBA Showtime today, Bill Walton called them his New York Knicks. When Spike Lee arrived at the Garden today, he immediately made a beeline for Walton and said, "What are you talking about?" Ewing rebounds the long miss. We'll see how long they remain his Knicks. As long as they're in front, I suspect. LJ back out to Ward. But they slough off, so he hits the 3.
What they're doing is going at Chris Crawford. And whoever he's guarding, they're taking him in the low blocks and making the defense of Atlanta react.
Charlie Ward making that 3 despite no fingernail on the pinky of his right hand. Had it torn off earlier in the series as Steve Smith gets his first basket.
But Charlie told us today that it was fine and it will not be a factor.
Well, your Knicks are warriors.
The Knicks are looking very relaxed and extremely confident here.
Ward penetrates. There's LJ again. That one never got above the rim, but Thomas, the offensive board. Knicks ball. Allen Houston challenging Mutombo.
That's what Lenny Wilkins does not want. The deep shots are going to miss like Larry Johnson did, but to let them penetrate, get to the rim, first two for Allen Houston.
Where was Mutombo?
Mutombo's been a non-factor in this series on the defensive end as Mookie Blaylock hits the long jumper to bring the score within 5 for Atlanta, but Mutombo's been back on his heels as the Knicks have attacked him as a good, fine, fluid offensive machine that they are.
Houston penetrates, ball movement, right back inside to Houston. Can't hit that one over long. Mutombo the outlet to Blaylock. Mookie got a step. Here's Steve Smith being checked by Thomas.
Now, this is the same shot Smith could have taken it 5 seconds ago, decides to drive, and he gets 2. Good dance by Kurt Thomas, who cannot stick with him out on the perimeter.
Steve, all the Knicks have scored with the exception of Patrick Ewing as they take a timeout right now. That has to please Jeff Van Gundy as they're really developing a positive team identity here.
Steve Smith has gotten off the mark early. Here he puts a move on Kurt Thomas, gets by him for the reverse layup. And the Hawks have closed the gap to 3. It's 13-10 Knicks, the NBA on NBC.
It's do or die for the Lakers against the Spurs. Next on...
Patrick Ewing has yet to attempt a shot. His Knicks lead by 3. Let's check in with Jim Gray.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. I spoke with Jeff Van Gundy before the game. He told his team, hey, guys, we can lose to Atlanta. They're a good enough team to come back on us. Don't lose your focus. Don't slip into cruise control. Part of Van Gundy's concern is the fact that they're playing back-to-back games today and tomorrow, and he's not sure whether or not Patrick Ewing will be able to play, and if he does play, how effective he'll be. However, if you take a look at the statistics in Patrick's 13 back-to-back games the second half this year, his points are up, his rebounds are up, and his minutes are up. And if you look at the one big game that they clinched their playoff spot, he had 27 points against the Celtics, and that came after the Achilles injury. So the statistics, Tom, really don't back up what Van Gundy is concerned about.
Coaches don't care. They have something in their mind, and nothing can dissuade them as Patrick Ewing hits his first shot of the game.
A lot of the explanation for Patrick's success in the second day of back-to-back situations, Tom, is the fact that he doesn't practice at all. He used the first game as a rhythm orientation game. Then the second game comes around. Even though he may not be feeling as healthy, his game is a little bit sharper and crisper.
Long missed the shot right under the rim. Another concern of Van Gundy's might be that his team has not handled success very well this season.
Well, this is a team that celebrates early, and they're trying to break that bad habit. They know if they win this game, they really control the destiny of the series.
Ewing with a miss, rebounded by Mutombo, his 3rd board.
Very little offensive rebounding for the Knicks. I think their biggest concern today is overconfidence.
Steve Smith, nice dribble to get free, and he hits his 3rd field goal.
Now, when Smith starts like this, it's a big afternoon for the Atlanta Hawks, and he will keep them in this ball game down 3.
I think they might want to switch Larry Johnson onto Steve Smith. Steve Smith can't overpower Larry the way he is Allen Houston right now.
But he can outquick Larry Johnson. They've got a matchup problem with Smith when Smith is playing at the offensive end. Back to Ewing, 4 on the clock.
Now 2 to shoot. Ewing got it away. Could not hit. Mutombo an easy rebound, number 4. Steve Smith missed his first 2 shots since his 3 for 3.
Mookie just toying with Charlie Ward out in front.
Away from the ball, a whistle from Steve Javie and a foul on Kurt Thomas of New York, his first.
You know, Kurt Thomas has got a lot of New York Giant or New York Jet in him because he hits anything in the opposing uniform. That time, with no idea what he was doing, just comes down and gives a shot to Mutombo as Sprewell comes in the ballgame.
To a giant welcome from the Garden crowd, replacing Larry Johnson. Latrell Sprewell, nothing sort of sensational in the first 2 games. 31 in game 1, matched with 31 in game 2. And Latrell is averaging 20 points a game throughout the playoffs, Miami and Atlanta.
Sprewell, Reggie Miller, and Tim Duncan have been the playoffs' most dynamic performers to date. Oh, beautiful back cut by Smith.
Missed the layup. And a loose ball foul on the rebound, called on New York.
Steve was lying on the ground looking for somebody to come pick him up, and the only guys around were Knicks, Sprewell, and Allen Houston. They weren't going to come over and pick him up. The back cut Allen Houston loses sight of the ball and then just gets posted up so deep. There is no chance he has of stopping him. Ewing with the reach-in foul and the rebound attempt.
And it's the second foul on Ewing, who goes to the bench.
He is coming out of the game, and this is the team that they fear when they get smaller. Dudley's in the game. That's not going to hurt them nearly as much. But when they get Dudley out of the ball game and they go with that quick attacking unit, the Hawks don't like it.
Mutombo got his own and missed the jam. Crawford with the long offensive rebound to the basket. Collision and a blocking foul on Dudley.
What did you say in the open about please somebody make a shot? A layup to miss by Mutombo and then a dunk. Dikembe struggling mightily.
Atlanta comes into the game hitting just 32.9% of its shots in this series.
Now they're trying to post Crawford. He's got a chance to use his size against Sprewell. Down on the box now, spins away.
The 6'9" Crawford had it rim out. Offensive rebound for a moment by Long. He's knocked out of bounds by Thomas, who commits the personal foul on Thomas, number 2.
Well, Thomas believes in the theory, use them all, because if you're around him and he's not in a position to make a solid play, he'll give you a shot, and he's coming out of the ball game, and the high-flying Marcus Camby is coming in.
One of the stars of game 2. The problem is you get Thomas out of the game, and Camby comes in. He's been dynamic, 13 rebounds in game 2.
Well, the special second unit that Van Gundy has now at his disposal certainly has been a major difference in this series. Atlanta, no depth whatsoever.
Camby knocked it away from Blaylock. Ward missed the shot. Camby tapped it in.
As a guard, coming to the hoop when there's a shot blocker back. Just make sure he doesn't get his hand on it. Throw it up over the top no matter what. The big guy will smash it home.
Marcus Camby paying immediate dividends with a steal and a putback. 2 bounces and off for Grant Long. Out of bounds to New York.
This is a puzzlingly poor Atlanta Hawk offensive system right now. That's just not putting any points on the board. But the defense turning into offense, that kind of special plays will separate these two squads.
I want to remind you, it is a 5-point game.
You always remind me of that.
Well, I mean, you know, it's very early in the game.
Camby bricked that shot.
That was a pass.
Oh, I see. Off the board to Blaylock, evidently. Atlanta during the regular season was one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA, 40.9%, 27th. They've been even worse than that in this series. Crawford misses. Finally, Mutombo slams it home, and another offensive rebound. Atlanta has a half dozen offensive boards.
One thing you can see, Tom, with Crawford, he's got quickness out on the perimeter. He's not a power player. He's able to get by big people into Dudley.
Houston, wide open. Camby blocked by Mutombo. Mutombo rejected that one. Numbers for Atlanta. Blaylock pull-up 3, and rebounded by Dudley.
Camby's dunk attempt, too slow of a delivery.
Allen Houston gives it to Sprewell. Hops back for space and hits. Made a big hop to create some space between himself and Crawford and knocked it down.
Nice interchange between Houston and Sprewell. The penetration, the dish. When that teamwork is clicking, I don't know who can beat the Knicks other than the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference.
Who await the winner of this series and will have at least a week of rest.
7 on the shot clock for Grant Long and a nice drive. Now, they've been able to get inside the Knicks defense, so if they continue to drive the ball, they're going to stay in the ball game, and it's a question of which key player gets in foul trouble.
Grant Long muscling that last one in for Atlanta. He has 4 points. Here's Sprewell.
He gives that pump fake right, and then the one step backwards, nothing Chris Crawford can do.
But the Hawks have got an answer when they drive the ball to the bucket. Grant Long brings it strong right at the rim, so no Patrick Ewing, no shot block.
The remarkable story of Steve Smith, the man who tore up his knee 2 times in his first year in the NBA. When he plays, they're virtually unbeatable. When he doesn't play, they can't beat anyone. Steve Smith able to post up over shorter guards, beat quicker guys off the dribble on the perimeter. This guy is the key and has a beautiful, magnificent game to go along with a fabulous personality.
What happened to the pass you were making?
I've been watching Kobe.
Bill refusing to give it up. They were supposed to share that replay, folks. Allen Houston, he has 4 points. And away from the ball, whistle stops play.
Dudley. Allen Houston with a quick move, and one of the ways that he can offset what Steve Smith is going to throw at him is to be aggressive at the offensive end. Second hoop of the first quarter for him.
You have to get rough and physical with Allen Houston, who's already doubled his scoring total from the other night.
Mutombo lost it on the way up. Saved by Long. He pumps and fires. No good. Rebounded by Camby. Crawford got him.
Well, you can't say that offensive rebounding is a problem for the Hawks this afternoon because they've been giving themselves multiple opportunities. They have not been able to finish. And as I say to you all the time, Bill Walton, in a game of scoring, if you don't score, you don't win.
Crawford with
how profound.
2 fouls goes out, and Tyrone Corbin is in.
Steve, the reason that the Hawks are getting all these offensive rebounds is that the shots are rimming out. No legitimate defensive rebounder can get a bead or read on these shots at all. They are looking so bad.
Allen Houston against Smith. He'll shoot a pair of free throws. Allen, who hit the winning shot against the Miami Heat in that terrific game a week ago in Miami. He said the voicemail when he returned to New York was full of well wishes and words from his friends and fans. He said that, but his dad, Wade, ever the coach, said, you know, you didn't swish it, but at least you had a little touch on it. It hit the rim and hit the backboard and went through.
And Allen telling us that plane ride home, as Ewing supports his scoring teammates, is that plane ride home was very special for this Knicks team that's really coming together in terms of chemistry and camaraderie right now.
His dad, Wade, who coached him at the University of Tennessee, was actually at Allen's sister's graduation and saw the game on tape. Plenty of time to replay that last shot.
Well, Smith wants it, and he wants to make something happen. It is into the floor, but they double-team him. It's going to be a tough shot for the Hawks against the clock.
Floater by Tyrone Corbin goes through. Corbin just off the bench for his first bucket, and it makes it a 5-point New York lead.
Lenny Wilkins, because of all the injuries here to this Hawk team, has struggled to find guys who can play either forward position. Corbin, Long, Crawford getting the roll now.
Air ball by Sprewell, knocked out of bounds by Dudley. Atlanta's ball with 52.6 seconds left in the opening quarter.
Mutombo is getting bounced around like a ping pong ball at both ends. He looked around to see what truck hit him in the back that time as Dudley crashed. Get a foul at this end of the floor. Looks like Allen Houston.
I'm sure that'll bring a lot of sympathy to the players around the league that Mutombo is getting some body contact.
Those elbows are registered as lethal weapons, I think.
It's every player's responsibility to keep his elbows below the head and neck level of his opponent. Dikembe sometimes violates that unwritten code of conduct.
Where did you see that?
It's unwritten. I didn't see it. I just know it.
Go courtside for every playoff game with NBA.com's Courtside Live. It's your high-tech ticket for real-time shot charts, live play-by-play, complete in-game stats for every playoff player and team, and the same-night video highlights, the inside scoop from our NBA.com commentators. It's your ultimate online resource for the NBA playoffs.
2-for-1 time for the Knicks.
Ward dancing, 10 to shoot. Allen Houston got it inside to Camby. Mutombo rejected, but Dudley puts it home.
This second unit plays with such greater energy than the starting lineup. I don't know if the Hawks can match that.
You know, they must have replayed that dunk that Camby threw down on Mutombo about 20 times because he is not letting Camby get any of those throwdowns today.
Steve Smith, finger roll, came up short, but then he tapped it in. Smith taps it in. 2 seconds to go in the quarter. He blocks Houston's shot as the quarter comes to a close. Well, the Hawks trail, but not due to lack of effort by Steve Smith. Already 12 points in the first quarter and a blocked shot to end the first period of play. At the end of one, game 3 from New York. It's the Knicks 25 and the Hawks 22. You're watching the NBA on NBC. 20 years ago, Lenny Wilkens had one of many great moments as an NBA head coach when he led the Seattle Supersonics to the only world championship in their history, behind the play of Jack Sikma. Finals MVP Dennis Johnson and Gus Williams, the Sonics upset the defending champion Washington Bullets to take the title in 5 games. Lenny Wilkens in the Hall of Fame, both as a player and as a coach, one of only 2, the other being John Wooden. Bill, you have the distinction of having played for both Coach Wooden and Coach Wilkens.
Lenny Wilkens was my first pro coach, my first 2 years in Portland, did a marvelous job. Unfortunately, I couldn't play. We had all kinds of chemistry problems, but there was one other player, Steve, who played for both John Wooden and Lenny Wilkens. Only 2 of us. Who was the other guy?
Yeah, affectionately known to us as Sir Sid, Sidney Wicks.
The great Sidney Wicks. Are you kidding? College Player of the Year, NBA Rookie of the Year.
Steve Smith with the 3-pointer. And just to close the thought on Lenny Wilkens, he's coached and played in more NBA games than any other person in history. One of the 50 greatest players and 10 greatest coaches, has won more games. Marcus Camby slams home his 4th point.
Steve, I don't care how many times Mutombo watches that video. If he's going to stand underneath the hoop and try to block shots, he'll never get any more.
Corbin for 3.
Nice shot.
Mutombo with an offensive board. Steve and I were wondering, Bill, if that video of Camby dunking over Mutombo looked familiar to you at all.
Very familiar. That's what Dr. J used to do to me on a regular basis. When we went into the Hall of Fame together, Dr. J and I, every single one of his highlight videos was of him dunking on me.
Grant Long with a putback as the Hawks continue to pound the offensive board. It's keeping in the game. They have 9 offensive rebounds. They've tied it at 27.
Well, it's been the hot shooting of Steve Smith. He missed that 3, but he's right on the money. And Sprewell back on the money himself.
Sprewell playing with confidence. You know that he is not happy coming off the bench, but he told us he's reconciled himself to that. Lob it inside. Mutombo around Dudley. Got a piece of it out of bounds to Atlanta.
That was a classic example of why Dikembe Mutombo is a limited offensive player. He was wide open, and he has to put the ball on the floor to finish. The guy's 7'2" with arms of a guy 7'8". He's trying to do a reverse layup here. Just go up and dunk the ball to Kemby.
Well, they bring Ed Gray in the ball game, and Ed Gray is a scoring machine as Steve Smith attacks. And they may not need anybody else but Steve Smith this afternoon.
Right. He's capable, and Steve Smith has put in another bucket to tie the game at 29.
He had 10 in the first. He's got 5 here, quick in the second, 15.
Obviously, Steve Smith's leg feeling a lot better today than it did in game 2.
Chris Childs at the point for the Knicks. Sprewell wide open 3. Camby with a follow. Dudley slapped at it. Finally taken right back to Dudley. The hook is no good. Mutombo makes sure finally on the rebound for Atlanta.
You notice the crowd is on their seats with every Sprewell catch now. You know, and that's what scoring will do. It'll make people fall in love with you. Mistake Steve Smith.
Sprewell to Childs. Can't handle the pass. Tough bounce pass in transition. We've got a timeout. 9:12 left till halftime. The Hawks and the Knicks tied at 29. Despite their short bench, they're missing Alan Henderson. If you turn around, you see he has a patch over his eye, an eye abrasion. There it is. Double vision, unable to play. And next to him, LaFonso Ellis, who's been injured most of the season. A very short bench for Atlanta. Look at the points they're missing. And Lenny Wilkens saying to us it's extremely disappointing to him because when he had his team intact, he thought they were playing very well. And he thought with no dominant team in the East this year, it might be a year that they could make it to the finals.
But just look at those guys, Tom. Ellis and Henderson, 6'10", very athletic, rangy, can play over the top. You team them up with a shot blocking Mutombo. Oh, Camby, too sweet. He had time to turn around and wait for Mutombo to get underneath that one.
Camby converts the steal into a slam. And New York has a 2-point lead.
Well, you remember all of the controversy about the trade, and now they're also in love with Marcus Camby, but it's the activity that creates it. Ed Gray.
Long missed the putback. Here come the Knicks on the break. Sprewell from Childs.
There's that revolutionary discovery of the fast break that we mentioned in the Showtime. What a novel concept. Outrun your opponents to get easy baskets.
We were talking to Marcus Camby yesterday, and we asked him how he was able to handle all the criticism and the unpleasantness resulting from the trade of Charles Oakley, an extremely popular player. He had a simple answer. He said, I don't read the New York newspapers. And again, the break. This time, LJ on the finishing end.
An 8-2 spread in fast break points for the Knicks. Lenny Wilkens forced to call a timeout. Every single one of the Knicks getting involved here. Camby pokes it away the first time, playing the passing lanes, a la James Worthy of the ex-Laker dynasty in the 80s. And the underneath pass, terrific hands by Latrell Sprewell.
6-0 run by the Knicks. All 6 points coming on the fast break. They lead it 35-29.
The Los Angeles Lakers, the San Antonio Spurs. It's do or die for L.A. Behind Tim Duncan's 37 points yesterday, the Spurs stand on the verge of the conference finals. Now, with their backs against the wall, the Lakers must come up big at home to stay alive. The race for the rings, next.
Welcome back to New York. I'm Jim Gray. The Knicks are obviously playing very well, advanced further than many people had thought. However, Jeff Van Gundy still continues to have speculation about his job. The New York Times, the front of the sports page today, says Knicks and Phil Jackson had a secret talks. There you take a look at it. Tried to reach Dave Checketts. He is not here at the game today because of religious reasons. However, a spokesman for Checketts gave us the following quote from Dave. He says the story is totally false. The facts are not true. However, someone involved in this process confirmed to NBC that the meeting, in fact, did take place, and the Knicks are now denying it because they don't want Van Gundy looking over his shoulder. Finally, I spoke to Van Gundy, and he told me that he understands it intellectually. He understands the process. He says he has feelings, but what can he do? He can't spend all of his time worrying about it. Tom?
All right, Jim. Right now, things going pretty good for Van Gundy and the Knicks, though. The number 8 team in the East, bidding to go up 3-0 in this conference semifinal series.
I bet Dave Checketts not being here has something to do with the fact he didn't want to see Jim Gray today.
After last Sunday, I guarantee it. Corbin misses a 3 underneath. Foul called on Chris Dudley of New York. Patrick Ewing returns to the fray.
Well, it looks like it's a double foul, Ewing and Mutombo, but there has been a collision every time down the floor between those two. The reaction from Dudley as he comes out of the ball game, he's not happy. Ewing back in, they'll have a jump ball. But speed kills, and that's what's really hurt the Atlanta Hawks right here. Ewing comes in, that will slow the game down, or he will miss the boat.
Fast break points in favor of the Knicks, 8-2. The Hawks' only fast break points were the first 2 of the game. While Patrick Ewing was on the bench, the New York lead doubled from 3 to 6.
The guy with the ball, Ed Gray, really believes in his own offensive ability. So if he's out on the floor, he's going to try to attack. They get a whistle. This one against Chris Childs.
Well, he's not shy.
Ed Gray, he grew up in Reggie Miller's hometown of Riverside, California.
Well, he's a cousin of the Jets wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson, too, and he's not shy either. There's Gray. Well, that one goes down for Ed Gray. That's his first bucket.
Ed Gray went to Tennessee initially, played in the SEC, where, Tom, you saw his game early. Then he went to Southern Idaho Junior College before finishing up 2 years at Berkeley with a degree in sociology.
Kicked ball in a fresh 24 while he is in Knoxville. He made the SEC all-freshman team before leaving, as you said, where he was a junior college All-American at College of Southern Idaho before being named Pac-10 Player of the Year at Berkeley.
The one thing that Lenny Wilkens needs, and he gives him, is scoring. Sprewell has been able to post smaller guards, trying to work his way in against Ed Gray.
Latrell Sprewell playing with such confidence these days.
He has such a dominant right hand. Everybody has to honor that. And he has that spin back move. He has the step back that we saw earlier right in front of the Knick bench.
Mutombo cut off by Ewing. You know the story about Mutombo and Ewing and their summer games with Alonzo Mourning, the Georgetown alums. Tapped in beautifully.
Grant Long.
By Grant Long.
Atlanta's doing a good job of attacking the offensive glass, but when they miss it, they're paying the price because the Knicks are beating them in transition.
A dozen offensive rebounds.
You mentioned the story of Ewing and Mutombo. What's remarkable is that this series has not been impacted by either player.
Well, you know, you got Ewing that's hurt, and you've got Mutombo that needs rhythm. We got a waltz that doesn't work. And that's the reason that they haven't had any impact. I mean, Ewing has been in foul trouble, and Mutombo has not been able to get offensive rhythm.
Latrell Sprewell with a miss, but he scored 8 points in 11 minutes. That one will sail out of bounds.
That wasn't Mookie Blaylock's fault. He saw Ed Gray initially. Ed stopped. If he'd have kept going, he would have had two.
But Larry Johnson is playing such terrific defense. Nice to see that he took the belt off today, too.
That special belt?
That special belt that he was wearing last week, yes.
He still has it on. It's just a white uniform.
I'm really confused today.
LJ lost it. Corbin to Gray. Pull-up shot, Ed Gray. Weren't you in Portland yesterday?
Would you rather I go back?
22nd timeout taken by the New York Knicks with 5:04 left till halftime. And New York up by 2 as Ed Gray has put a charge in the Hawks offense. And here are the comebacks from 0-2. And of course, 1977, the Blazers in the Sixers in a best-of-7. They were able to come back from that 0-2 deficit.
Well, what makes this so difficult for Atlanta is that New York's defense is so solid, and Atlanta's offense basically is not functioning at all. No number 8 seed has ever advanced to the conference finals, and as we look forward to a likely Indiana-New York series, that should be very, very interesting.
You know, the Knicks don't want to find out about that because you are known as the kiss of death. That crystal ball that you've got has got a lot of clouds in it. And if they find out you're pulling for them.
I'm pulling for the best team to win, Steve.
Well, Jeff Van Gundy knows the other side of that comeback story. He was an assistant coach when the Knicks went up 2-0 on the Bulls in '93, but eventually lost to Chicago.
Well, the Knicks also have lost before when Earl Monroe and the Baltimore Bullets came back with one of the great series of all time. And those Earl Monroe, Walt Frazier matchups in the 1970s, those were classics. Earl, of course, finished his career with the Knicks and on his way to a Hall of Fame career, had his number retired here in Madison Square Garden.
There you go. Walt Frazier, Clyde they call him, and a lot of people comparing a Houston and Sprewell to that past Knicks guard combination. Hamby puts it home.
That was a great pass from Larry Johnson, and he drops it right into Camby. Camby's had a real impact since coming into the ball game just with his energy.
That might be a stretch, Tom, that comparison. Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe, those guys, you're talking top 20 players of all time.
Off-balance shot by Gray. And Hamby leads the break. Here's Childs. Sprewell feeds Ewing. Long with a flop. Ewing missed the shot. Mutombo with a rebound. He has 10 boards already. Blaylock's pull-up won't go.
Now that's a rebound. That's what rebounders live for, coming down the lane.
I think probably because he climbed the back of the guy in front of him.
Wait a second. He just followed this ball in magnificently, saw it the whole way. They could not have called that foul on Marcus Camby.
They actually called it on Larry Johnson.
Oh. Must have been the belt.
Smith off a screen, defended well by New York.
I'm sure Lenny Wilkins told these guys we don't want to live and die by the 3, and they've taken a couple quick ones here. Ed Gray dashed to the hoop, bodies all over the place.
Ed Gray is averaging about a shot every 20 seconds.
Ronnie Garrison just told him, no way, Ed. You bulled in, you get nothing for that one.
6 shots in 6 minutes for Ed Gray since coming in. I exaggerated just a little.
But that's his job.
Seems like more.
But that's his job. His job is to try to give Lenny Wilkens' team some offensive energy. Of the people that are left on Wilkens' benches, Larry Johnson comes out. He's the most capable.
You know, any guy that's won the Pac-10 Player of the Year has just got to be one of the most dominant players in the game.
Well, he has awards at 3 different stops in his college career. I don't know, there's a message there somewhere. Blaylock's pull-up shot, tough one, and off the mark, boarded by Ewing. Shot selection is not so great these recent possessions for Atlanta. Allen Houston was the man that replaced Larry Johnson. Here's Sprewell, hacked by Smith.
Tom, one of the things that really hurts Atlanta's shot selection is that Mutombo and Grant Long are doing nothing underneath to bring the defense off the scorers like Smith, Mookie, and the dynamic Ed Gray.
Dynamic now. Latrell Sprewell toes the line, born in Milwaukee. Played college ball at the most unlikely place from Milwaukee, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, after going to junior college. Jesse Ventura shocked America when he was elected governor of Minnesota. Tonight, NBC presents a knockdown, drag-out world premiere movie, The Jesse Ventura Story, 9/8 Central on NBC. Sprewell with 10 points.
Van Gundy loves the fact that Sprewell gets to the foul line. He's got very few guys who draw the respect of the officials.
Long sped right by Camby, and then Camby pushed him in the back.
That's what the Hawks need more of. But when their perimeter game breaks down, which it will because they shoot a lot of long-distance shots and those are coming under pressure, you need someone that can get to the rim. Camby picks up that foul. The hand goes up. Grant Long to the line.
Grant Long has quietly had a very productive first half. 8 points and 7 rebounds, 6 of them offensive.
He's a very cerebral player, Grant Long is an active chess player. Has taught Steve Smith how to play. You see the last 3 games, big game 5 against Detroit, 26 points there, and then the donut in game 1 as the home court advantage was wrestled away. But as a chess player, he taught Steve Smith how to play, and they studied together out of the books, and they play online over the internet, and really have a terrific time over the chessboard on the road trips.
Long drops in the free throws. He's in double figures, 10 points, 7 rebounds. And it's a 4-point New York lead, just over 3 minutes left in the half.
Anthony Johnson is coming to ball game. They want to get some defensive energy. Ed Gray out. Sprewell.
Latrell Sprewell. Sprewell and Allen Houston played against each other in their Southeastern Conference days. Sprewell at Alabama, Houston at Tennessee. But now, for the first time this season, they're starting to play very well together. They used to early in the season just stand and watch the other operate. Now playing well together.
Camby blocks it out.
Marcus Camby, another big play. New York leads.
Hi, everybody. Hannah Storm in New York. Coming up on the Prudential Halftime Report, we'll bring you a tribute to the Pistons' Joe Dumars. Last Sunday was his final NBA game. Dumars got a hug from Atlanta Hawks coach Lenny Wilkens, one of his many admirers throughout the league. Here's Dumars reflecting on his 14-year career.
The respect you get from other players, from coaches, from referees, from fans, it's tremendous when you become a champion, and people will always refer to you as that. So accomplishing that will always stand out first and foremost in terms of things I've done here for the Detroit Pistons.
Coming up, a retrospective on one of the NBA's classiest players, Joe Dumars. We'll also have highlights of the Pacers and Sixers Game 4 from Philly. Right now, the Knicks lead the Hawks by 6 as we rejoin Tom Hammond, Steve Jones, and Bill Walton.
All right, Hannah, thank you. And you can count the 3 of us as among the admirers of Joe Dumars, who had a fantastic career in Detroit, 14 seasons, over 16,000 points. More importantly, those 2 NBA championships. And one of the finest men in the NBA, Don Chaney, the Knicks assistant coach now, was one of Joe's coaches in the Motor City.
Don Chaney, who has been hugely responsible for the Knicks' defensive success over the years. Don Chaney was a 5-time second-team All-League defensive player, one of the best big guards in the history of basketball.
Meanwhile, Grant Long just scored his 12th point. He's keeping Atlanta within striking distance. Ewing rimmed out to Mutombo. Sprewell and Camby have scored 16 of the 18 points New York has scored in this quarter with 2 minutes left.
Well, Steve Smith was smoking hot and has not been able to regain that touch since he came back in the game. Long.
It was long. Right into the hands of Sprewell. Toward Houston for 3.
Good, quick giving up the ball by Sprewell. Sprewell is playing a game right now where if he gets it in 1 or 2 dribbles, he's right up with it. Otherwise, he's looking to get the other guys going, and that's really paid big dividends for Van Gundy.
New York equals its biggest lead.
They're trying to get Steve Smith some room to work. Camby, the foul.
What about the traveling violation on Steve Smith as he shuffled and tried to find a pivot foot? But here's Allen Houston moving beautifully off of the Sprewell penetration.
An example again of how well they're working together these days.
Tom, who was the better player in college? You called both of their games, and how did the head-to-head matchups go?
Well, Tennessee was usually not as good as Alabama in those days, and Alabama generally won the game, but no question that Allen Houston was the better player in college. Only Pete Maravich scored more points in the SEC than did Allen Houston, who also led the league in 3-point field goals made. And of course, game 4, the Jazz and the Blazers coming up on TNT tonight. That's an 8 o'clock Eastern time start. After the triple header on NBC, you can tune in the Jazz and the Blazers game 4 on TNT tonight.
Now let's remember that Latrell Sprewell came in the league as a defensive specialist. When he went to the Golden State Warriors, he wasn't supposed to know da-da about offense. And somewhere he found out.
Da-da. Let me, where's my dictionary?
Childs backing in on Blaylock, gets it to Houston. Tough fall away shot, Allen Houston, and he's in double figures with 11.
Houston got it going early by getting to the hoop. Couple of foul shot attempts, found his rhythm, and now the fadeaways, the long distance bombs are finding their range.
Well, the thing for Blaylock and the Hawks is to stay close, and so they've got to move the ball, move people a little bit quicker, and get off the perimeter. Smith is going to have to go against the clock.
Got the shot away, got his own rebound, and pumped it home. Well, that breaks a run where Long and Gray had scored the last 12 Atlanta points.
Injuries have hurt so many players' careers. I would have loved to have seen an injury-free Steve Smith have a 15-year career.
Well, despite his little dry spell the last few minutes, he has 17 in this first half. Houston missed that one. Dudley!
Well, Steve Smith is saying he was in the cylinder. It looked like that ball was above it, but Dudley's going to get 2.
You can't stop Chris Dudley. You can only hope to contain it.
He has 4 points, 5 rebounds.
Hey, Bill, I just want to tell you, Smith's career is not over. I mean, he may not get 15, but he's still around.
Wow, tough 3-point shot by Mookie Blaylock. Chris Childs was right in his face, and Mookie popped it in. 10 seconds left in the half. Houston bounces in. Allen Houston.
That will forever be known as the Miami bounce.
Latrell Sprewell once again putting a charge in the New York offense when coming from off the bench, and Camby too. The New York bench has outscored the Atlanta bench 24-6. And at the end of the first half at Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks 52 and the Atlanta Hawks 46. Now stay tuned for the Prudential halftime report coming up after these messages. You're watching the NBA on NBC.
This is the Prudential halftime report, brought to you by Prudential. Prudential, a leader in insurance, investments, real estate, and financial services. See why Prudential is today's rock-solid choice for your financial needs.
Halftime at Madison Square Garden, the Knicks lead the Hawks 52-46. Steve Smith leads all scorers with 17 points, but the Knicks dynamic duo, Latrell Sprewell and Allen Houston, cooking again. Houston has 13 and Sprewell 12 to lead New York. Hi, everybody. Hannah Storm back with Isaiah Thomas and Peter Vesey. We'll check in with them in a few moments. But first, a guy that spent 9 years playing alongside Isaiah. With last Sunday's loss to the Atlanta Hawks, the NBA career of the Pistons' Joe Dumars came to an end. 14 glorious years of accomplishments. But his career was also noteworthy for the quiet dignity that Dumars brought to the game. He is an authentic sports hero, not the product of some marketing campaign, but rather of his own work ethic and his enduring respect for the game.
I maintain a certain level of dignity with my career for 14 years. That I'm proud of that, and I'll miss the games. Those 48 minutes, I will miss.
We loved him in college and saw him play in, I think they were playing an all-star game, maybe Hawaii. Looked at the tape and said, a player. But never thought we were going to be able to draft him.
The Detroit Pistons select Joe Dumars of McNeese State.
I knew nothing about Detroit. I knew they had Isaiah, Vinnie Johnson, Lambeer. Other than that, it was a mystery to me coming here.
We had a veteran team that I knew I was going to have problems breaking him into, and we didn't get to it until we started to really struggle somewhere around Christmas of his first year, and then he was inserted in the starting lineup and basically has been there ever since.
As a senior in college, I had a poster on my wall, one NBA poster, and it was Isaiah Thomas driving to the basket, making this layup. From that poster to today, I had no idea that I'd ever play the bulk of my career with this guy and accomplish the things that we accomplished together.
We could be in an arena full of 21,000 people screaming and hollering, and I could hear Joe saying, psst, 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 psst. I mean, we were just connected out on the court. It was beautiful.
The Detroit Pistons, the NBA champions of the year 1988-89.
Joe Dumars, the MVP of the 1989 finals.
When they won the championships and they were the bad boys, it was like he was the guy who sort of didn't fit into the mold of who the bad boys were. When you talked about Lambeer and Mahorn and Rodman and Sally and Isaiah, he was sort of like the guy who didn't fit. He did fit. He fit perfectly because he was as competitive, as tough as any of those guys. He just did it in a very quiet and professional way.
The Pistons returned to the finals against Portland in 1990. In Game 3, Dumars scored a game-high 33 points, but the celebration was fleeting.
I know a lot of you were probably expecting to see Joe, but you know, his father passed away this afternoon, and he didn't know anything about it.
Absolute toughest period I've ever gone through in my life, because you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. You really are. You on one.
He's been a blessing for me, and I wish that every young player had a Joe Dumars to learn from, you know, as they come into the league about basketball and about life.
He's a great player for people to sit and look at and say, that's the way the game should be played. And I wish more guys would look at a Joe Dumars the way he's handled himself throughout his career, because young players could learn so much from him.
Joe Dumars turns 36 tomorrow, and one can only hope that he continues to stay involved in the NBA for everybody's benefit. What do you think of when you see that piece?
Hannah, playing with Joe and the Pistons at that time was the purest form of camaraderie that I've ever felt before as a team. I mean, it was the purest element of sports. It was trust, it was commitment, there was a bond between us. It was pure love that we all shared during that time. And, you know, Joe, you were the best, man. And, good luck to you, brother. I'll see you on the golf course.
What else made him special, Peter?
Well, first of all, there isn't anything I don't love about Joe Dumars, but one thing that stands out in my mind is the fact that he loves the game. He knows its history so well. I remember being at an all-star game with him a few years ago, and he said to me, he got me on the side, he says, Pete, he says, is that Charlie Scott over there? I said, yeah, that's Charlie Scott. He played in the ABA, he played for the Squires, he played for the Celtics. I said, how would you know Charlie Scott? He said, oh, man, I patterned my game after him. He says, would you introduce me to him? I said, you're kidding, Joe. You really? So I brought him over to Charlie Scott. What does he do? He asks for Charlie's autograph.
Wow. What was Charlie's reaction?
And then Charlie said, hey, listen, if you're going to take mine, I want your autograph. So they exchanged autographs and phone numbers, you know? I said, but you know what? There's one other thing I love about this guy. I said, and this is my favorite guy, honest. Sorry, Isaiah, but this was my favorite guy.
Pete, that way. You say that about everybody.
No.
You had about 10 favorite guys, man.
I never said that. I never said that about you.
You told Kenny the other night that he was your favorite guy.
I said he's my favorite co-host. Listen, I go nowhere without this thing, or I travel nowhere without this. This is my Joe Dumars doll.
Wow.
Now, this is my man, Isaiah. If you get me one, maybe I'll travel with you.
A little Isaiah doll. All right, as we step aside, a look at the final basket of Joe Dumars' brilliant career. And for the record, it was a three-pointer against the Hawks. We'll be back after a message from Prudential and a word from the NBA. In the early game today, the Indiana Pacers and Philly looking to sweep the Sixers out of the playoffs. Larry Bird and the Pacers looking to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals for the fourth time in 6 years. First quarter was all Reggie Miller. Miller off the missed free throw, buries the long three. He had 16 after one. Pacers led by 9 at the break. Sixers made a run, but down the stretch, the Pacers hitting the big shots. Miller again giving the Pacers the lead for good. They go on to win at 89-86. Larry Brown had wondered whether he might go into the locker room and congratulate the Pacers should they win, but he didn't have to. He was able to greet and speak with many of his former players on the court afterwards. Under the playoff format, which has been instituted since '84, Indiana just the fourth team ever to sweep the first 2 rounds. They await the winner of New York, Atlanta. And right now, the Knicks lead the Hawks by 6. We'll send you back to the Garden for the second half after these messages from your local station.
This has been the Prudential Halftime Report, brought to you by Prudential. Prudential, a leader in insurance, investments, real estate, and financial services. See why Prudential is today's rock-solid choice for your financial needs. The NBA on NBC is brought to you by NBC's Sunday movie event, The Jesse Ventura Story, tonight at 9, 8 Central.
From rainy Manhattan at Madison Square Garden, we're at halftime with New York leading 52-46 over Atlanta. The Knicks shooting 51% in that first half to only 38% for the Atlanta Hawks. And here are some other first half trends. The Atlanta Hawks, 30 missed shots in that first half, but they do have 13 offensive rebounds, actually more than New York has defensive rebounds. The Knicks getting great production off their bench, outscoring the Hawks 24-6. That second unit continues to pay dividends.
The Knicks as a team shooting 51%, but it was Latrell Sprewell who's playing at a faster pace than everybody else is, setting him up. And Marcus Camby, contributions in every aspect. The Knicks getting up and down the court. Latrell Sprewell virtually unstoppable. And when Marcus Camby can play passing lanes and finish, there is nothing that the Atlanta Hawks can do about it.
The New York bench outscoring Atlanta 24-6 and out-rebounding them 13-1. New York with a lead despite only 2 first-half points from Patrick Ewing.
Welcome back to the Garden. I'm Jim Gray. As we get ready for the second half, I spoke to both coaches. First, Lenny Wilkins of the Hawks. He said, we missed 30 shots. I want my team to be patient. I want my team to keep with the same shot selection. Just don't rush. Now, as for Jeff Van Gundy, he told me that his team was outplayed in all areas of the game and all of the effort areas. He wants a much better effort in the second half. He says, fortunately, we shot the ball well. He can live with Steve Smith shooting the ball well for them and getting 17 points. I cannot live with Grant Long in his 14. Tom?
All right, Steve Smith with a miss to open the third quarter. It's Crawford, Long, Mutombo, Smith, and Blaylock, the original starting five for Atlanta. Ditto for New York, with Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, Charlie Ward, and Kurt Thomas.
Well, the Knicks must have done something right there ahead at halftime. I don't know what Van Gundy was watching.
Well, coaches, you can never please coaches. You should know that.
4 on the clock.
You're right, Tom. Steve could never please his coaches.
Three-pointer by Charlie Ward as New York gives Atlanta a little taste of its own offensive rebounding medicine.
On Jim Gray's report about Lenny Wilkens wanting his team to make some shots, Lenny may have to suit up and play. Lenny, of course, one of the top 50 players of all time.
Crawford, Mutombo will shoot 2. Ewing had the inside position on Mutombo. He was able to cleanly go up and get the ball and draw the foul. Meanwhile, Charlie Ward is 2 for 2 from the three-point arc.
The amazing thing about this Knicks team now is that they seem to be playing better as Patrick Ewing slides down the slippery slope.
Well, that's what Steve Smith said earlier in the series, that they preferred to see Patrick on the floor. They thought that improved Atlanta's chances.
It may help them in this series, but eventually, again, they still need the inside presence and the size of Patrick Ewing. Should they go on to play the Indiana Pacers in the finals, they will need Patrick Ewing.
Patrick, 1 of 5 shooting today, 2 points, 3 rebounds.
Should they go on, you're hedging your breakfast meeting prediction there, Steve.
Larry Johnson on Crawford. Ewing from 17. Rebounded by Long.
Grant Long has played a very solid game for Lenny Wilkens.
He played all 24 minutes, and, you know, Lenny's going to have to keep him out there until he expires because he's given him a lot of energy on that front line.
So far, no expiration date on Grant as Blaylock misses from outside. Rebounded by Ewing.
If Mookie Blaylock and Mutombo could bring anything to the offensive end, Atlanta would have a chance.
Larry Johnson.
Well, there's the matchup that's really hurting them. Whenever Chris Crawford has been out on the floor, they've gone right at him. They started with Kurt Thomas, then they switched it to Larry Johnson. So he's either got to score some points at his end of the floor, or he's got to sit down.
10-point lead is the biggest of the game. Patrick Ewing hit his first shot today, has missed his last 6 since then. Blaylock missing again, but Mutombo an offensive rebound. Here's Steve Smith. Crawford. Bad looking shot by Crawford. Smith saved it, and Crawford all the way over to the other side of the rim. 2 bad looking shots from Crawford.
Well, Crawford doesn't have a game yet where he can make it happen off his own dribble. He's a spot-up shooter. He's an opportunistic guy. The Knicks are just closing out on him.
Larry Johnson missed. Crawford gathers the rebound.
10-point game, and what the Hawks have to do is stay within themselves, and they've got to move the ball and drive the ball in the direction of the basket. They cannot live out on the perimeter this entire game. 8 on the clock for Grant Long.
Spins, gives it up to Mutombo. 3 to shoot. Mutombo. And rebounded by LJ.
That's a very weak offensive sequence for Dikembe Mutombo. He had a wide open 8-footer and turned it into something indescribable.
Johnson against Smith.
To Ewing. Ewing's missed 7 in a row. Meanwhile, Atlanta 0 for 7 to start the third quarter. Smith for 3. Long rebound. He got his own. And an offensive foul on Steve Smith of Atlanta. Things unraveling here early in the third for the Atlanta Hawks. They're 0 for 8.
Fine start to the third quarter for Lenny Wilkens. They just can't seem to get anything out of key players. Mookie Blaylock, supposed to be a special big game player, has not had it. Mutombo has struggled throughout, and Steve Smith doesn't have the second half quickness to get open.
Allen Houston. Timeout Atlanta. Well, in retrospect, that 39% shooting by the Hawks in the first half looks pretty good.
Sizzling.
Now, the one thing that Allen Houston has been able to do is spin, get into the middle, create a lot of problems for the defense, and that is one thing that Lenny Wilkins will not stand for.
Hawks 0 for 8 in the third. You're watching the NBA on NBC.
It's do or die for the Lakers against the Spurs, next on NBC.
Back to the Garden where the Stars are out for Game 3. Richard Lewis is here playing a little air guitar. There's Matt Dillon. Puff Daddy. Spike Lee, of course, in his courtside seat. Tim Hutton. And Chris Rock.
Chris Rock telling us at the halftime that he's going to sign up for the Michael Jordan basketball camp. And I asked him if the kids camp or the adults camp. He's going to go as a 15-year-old kid and try to beat somebody. He's working on his game.
Steve Smith, post-up move. The Hawks are 0 for 9 in the third. Charlie Ward penetrates. Nice catch by LJ.
The nice thing about the Knicks attack today is that Ward and Childs haven't tried to do anything like Frazier and Monroe.
Ewing threw it right to Long, and then he gave it back.
3 on the shot clock.
Ewing got it away and hit. Only his second field goal of the game up against the shot clock.
So the Hawks have only scored 1 point. They're down 14, and now they've got to find offensive hot hands. Been Grant Long and Steve Smith that have been able to generate the offense, but they're struggling right now. Grant Long.
Open shot. Couldn't hit. Somebody make a shot, please.
The celebration's underway here in Madison Square Garden early.
Well, I wouldn't start too soon because the Knicks are also capable of going into extended droughts. We've seen that before in different ball games. So the Hawks have got to take heart in the fact that if they can just stay close, New York will let them back in the game.
Extended droughts. They haven't even brought their best unit into the game yet.
They got Blaylock.
Finally, Blaylock sprints by Charlie Ward to lay one in.
Van Gundy's up the sideline saying, push the ball, punish these guys who have been playing virtually the entire game for the last month of the season. Injury-depleted Atlanta Hawks.
Smith fouls Houston.
A frustrated Steve Smith. As we go to the other end of the floor, you'll see a little stop and go by Blaylock, and he's got to attack the rim a lot more. And when he's getting the side and free, instead of pulling it back, go right to the rim, and they get their first field goal in almost 6 minutes of play.
Troubles compounding for the Hawks as Smith picks up his fourth. LJ spotted, open three. And we were so looking forward to that LJ signing it. Long runs the floor, will shoot 2. Coming up on NBC.
Tonight on Dateline, would you do this, or even this, just because someone dared you? The unbelievable stunts on a new Dateline tonight.
That's on NBC tonight. Looked like some of our production meetings.
The beautiful thing about the Knicks this afternoon is that nobody is standing around holding the ball. Van Gundy has finally convinced these guys to play a quicker, faster game. And so when Houston is getting it, Larry Johnson, Childs, Charlie Ward, Sprewell, as soon as they get it, bang, 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 right into it. And there's none of this stagnation that has plagued this team over the years.
It was Tyrone Corbin that hit the free throws not long, and it's a 10-point game.
Well, they've got to keep Steve Smith out on the floor, and if you're Allen Houston, you got to go at him and try to get that 5th foul. Larry Johnson trying to post Ty Corbin.
Ewing, 4 to shoot. Long gathers the carom. 10 rebounds for Grant Long. Blaylock one-on-one against Ward, gives it up to Corbin. Gets a screen from Long. Tyrone Corbin.
Charlie Ward with a great closeout defensively.
Good rebound by Kurt Thomas. Johnson spins and one. As you see, the Pacers closing out the 76ers and awaiting the winner of this series.
Now, see, you only get the LJ when something good happens. And quick spin inside. He gets to a hoop, and now he lets you know who he is.
Please. Work on your game. Well, Larry has worked on his game, and he's become a solid defensive player now that his physical capabilities are nothing what they used to be like when he was a UNLV star and early in his career at Charlotte. But the bad back, the injuries, the bad feet, and just doesn't have the vertical lift anymore, nor the explosive quickness. Nice pass.
10 points in the game as the Hawks throw it away. And it just gets worse, the news for the Hawks, because Latrell Sprewell has just come back into the game.
Really become a Garden favorite here. As soon as he gets up off the bench, the buzz just electrifying through the arena.
Ewing misses from in post, and Mutombo with the board.
Now, what the Hawks have to do is try to exploit the fact that Ewing's out on the floor, move the ball, and move people quickly. Get Mutombo out of the way as Ewing tries to double team. Ed Gray in the ball game for Steve Smith. He's going to look to air it out.
And he finds the bottom, a long-range 2 by Ed Gray. Just the second field goal of the quarter by Atlanta. They've scored only 7 points in over 7 minutes.
And as bad as it's been, they're only down 9. So, I mean, if they can just get a little offensive rhythm, they still have a chance in this ball game. Sprewell.
Latrell Sprewell misses, and that's what Lenny Wilkins said. Despite their poor shooting play in the first 2 games, they've still been in every game. Mutombo.
Like some early signs of rigor mortis there at Dikembe.
But, you know, that's not good decision-making by Mookie Blaylock, because Mutombo is going to have to either put the ball down or he's going to have a clear path. Any kind of movement, he's going to be in trouble. He travels with the ball.
Houston, the low post. Here's Sprewell. Back to Ward for 3. He hit his first 2. He's missed 2 in a row. Blaylock missed the layup. Atlanta just cannot afford to miss those easy shots. Houston.
Lenny Wilkins needs another timeout. I think they have to go have a shoot-around real quick in the auxiliary gym.
Well, if you can't finish at the other end, you can't give up the opportunity to the New York Knicks. But that's what's happening, and they've just got better offensive players who are having a better afternoon out on the floor. And on Houston, a tough runner, but he's on the money.
Houston was 17 points in the game, and New York in this third quarter has outscored Atlanta 14-7. And, of course, coming up next, Game 3, the Spurs and the Lakers. Third game of this NBA on NBC playoff tripleheader coming up next, as it could be the final game in the Great Western Forum for the Los Angeles Lakers, who move into the new Staples Center next season. They could be swept by San Antonio today, as they were swept by Utah in the conference finals a year ago.
A historical moment yesterday when Kobe did throw a pass. Maybe that will be duplicated today.
Maybe 2.
They come back to Mutombo, and they're letting him work one-on-one against Ewing, but he can't get that little rock move that he needs to make. 8 on the shot clock for Blaylock.
Lets it fly, no good. New York's ball.
New York is just outworking the Atlanta Hawks in every part of the game. They're quicker to the ball. They're seeing the play before the Hawks even start moving. And then the attack of Sprewell of Houston is just too punishing for this Atlanta team.
You're not watching the same game that Van Gundy's watching. He said it was the opposite way around.
Boy, New York's taking care of the basketball, too. No turnovers in 15 minutes until that one. Put the hex on him pretty well. Here's Gray.
Ed Gray is going to go.
Yeah, he went. Ewing gets it to Houston. The Traylor Thomas blocked by Mutombo. Saved by Sprewell. New York timeout. He comes with 2:22 left in the third quarter. A third quarter that's been dominated by the New York Knicks. They lead 66-53. The NBA on NBC. The only previous time these teams met in the playoffs, 1971, when Pete Maravich led the Hawks against the defending NBA champion Knicks. In spite of the Pistols' effort against Walt Frazier, Willis Reed and company, New York took the series in 5 games. Willis Reed running the floor and getting the layup. And as they leave the court, look at this figure right there on the left of your screen, one Phil Jackson. And there's no truth to the report that they were saying, would you like to coach the Knicks in 30 years? Walt Frazier, of course, courtside for today's game.
Dave Checketts would not be doing his job if he didn't have a meeting with Phil Jackson.
Not while you got an active coach. Nice block by Ed Gray. You know, again, what they need, they've had pretty good defensive energy. They need to find some offensive efficiency. They have missed a ton of shots, and they're still down 13. Get a little run here, get it down under double figures. They still have a chance to get their first win. Look into Mutombo, 7 on the clock.
Gray tries to split defenders, and up against the shot clock. He sends up a wild shot. It's a shot clock violation. It didn't hit the rim.
Mutombo and Mookie Blaylock, offensive futility. Dikembe's got 1 for 5 for a total of 3 points. He does have 14 rebounds. And then Mookie Blaylock, normally a special player. Mookie 4 for 12 this afternoon for just 9 points. He does have 3 assists, though.
Both Blaylock and Mutombo averaging 14 points a game in the playoffs. But ineffective against the New York Knicks. Sprewell goes to work. Hand check foul. Nope, it's going to be a hook on Sprewell.
What Sprewell did was knock the hand away. And as soon as you bring that hand down, it's going to be a foul against you as an offensive player. And he reaches back, slaps that hand off, and the call goes against Sprewell and the Knicks.
I thought the hand in the back was a foul.
Mutombo, a backdoor cut. Nets him another field goal. 5 points for Mookie. Or I said Mutombo, Mookie Blaylock.
But Steve, if they're not supposed to put your hands on the guy as a defender, why would be to knock off the hands be a foul?
Well, the ref didn't see that hand.
Oh, okay.
Sprewell. Hurt Thomas the offensive rebound. Ewing against Mutombo. Jump hook short. And 15 rebounds now for Dikembe.
Charlie Ward saw that coming a long way. It was a collision between himself and Blaylock. They come to Ed Gray on a foul.
Charlie Ward fouls Gray. Patrick Ewing, a tough shooting day. Ewing only 2 of 12 for the game.
Hasn't played basketball since the end of game 2, which was, how many days ago was that? I've lost track, but
I don't know why you've only been in 8 cities in 6 days.
But with the game tomorrow, I look for Patrick to be a lot sharper and have a much better rhythm.
Final seconds of the third quarter. Long got the roll. Grant Long. An unexpected offensive outburst, 16 points in the game.
9-point lead for the Knicks, and they'll try to hold for their final shot of the third quarter. Looking for Allen Houston against Ed Gray. They're sending him back around the other way against the clock now.
Off the screen, gets it to the open man, Thomas. Can't hit, long rebounds. Hawks have time for a shot. Blaylock got the screen, picked up by Dudley on the switch. Let it fly, no good, as the third quarter comes to an end. Atlanta did go on a 6-2 run at the end of the quarter, but Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell once again playing well for the New York Knicks. At the end of 3, New York 66, Atlanta 57. We'll be back after these messages and a word from your local station. You're watching the NBA playoffs on NBC.
This copyrighted telecast of the National Basketball Association is intended solely for the entertainment of our audience, and any retransmission, reproduction, rebroadcast, or other dissemination or use of this telecast, or of the pictures, descriptions, or accounts of this game, without the express written consent of the National Basketball Association, is prohibited.
As we get ready for the fourth quarter, I'm Jim Gray back at Madison Square Garden. I just hung up the phone with Dave Checketts, who is the CEO and the president of Madison Square Garden, regarding the story today in the New York Times regarding Jeff Van Gundy and his job and Checketts' meeting with Phil Jackson. He said he did not meet with Phil Jackson, and here is what Dave Checketts told me. He reached out through an intermediary to ask Phil Jackson and to find out if Phil Jackson, if in fact, was interested in coming to New York through an intermediary. The intermediary got back that, in fact, there was some interest. Checketts went on to point out that he has also heard from Dave Cowens, Doc Rivers, and other people around the NBA, and this all occurred in early April before he made the move of Ernie Grunfeld out as general manager. At that time, Checketts said, the team was going bad. It didn't look as though they would make the playoffs. So he says now, with 8 games left in the season, he decided to evaluate Jeff Van Gundy. He says Jeff Van Gundy is the head coach right now. There are no candidates. However, he felt he had to check out and see if, in fact, there was some interest not only in Phil Jackson, but others. So he has done that, and he feels as though he was only performing his duties for Madison Square Garden and for the Knicks. Tom?
All right, Jim. Dave Checketts relieving Ernie Grunfeld on April 21st when the Knicks were 21-21. And they look to be on the verge of being the first 8 team to advance to the conference finals. If they hold on to win this one, they'll be up 3-0 on Atlanta with a game coming up at the Garden tomorrow night.
Well, if Grant Long has anything to do with it, he's going to find a way to scratch out a win for the Atlanta Hawks. He has been very active and aggressive, got that ball down on the low post, a quick spin, pick up a foul. And you look at that last quarter, as badly as the Hawks were, they only got outscored by 3 points, 14-11.
Back to New York, scored only a couple of points in the last 5 minutes.
Don't tell Bill that classifies as a drought.
But this is a lineup for the Knicks that once they get running here, once the refs stop blowing the whistles, Dudley, just throw it up there and Dudley will take care of the rest.
Slammed it down. He has a half dozen points. You didn't call Dave Checketts, did you? They mentioned everybody else calling it, expressing interest.
No, but I do know that Isaiah Thomas and Kiki Vandeweghe are calling to apply for the GM job. Dudley over the top. The adversity that Chris Dudley has to play with. He's got 7 rebounds in his life, but here's a guy who's got diabetes, who gives himself 4 injections of insulin every day. He has to take blood tests virtually on a 4 times a day himself. Before every meal, before he goes to bed, has to give himself a shot. That's a tough way to go.
And he just picked up his 4th foul. Corbin out of bounds to New York.
That is the one flaw in the Hawk offense. You just can't stay out on the perimeter when you're struggling, and they've been tossing balls up there since we started the second half with very little success. They've got to get in a position where they can bring the ball to the hoop, get to the free throw line.
Look at this movement without the ball for the Knicks. Unheard of.
Can be.
From Sprewell.
Who are these guys?
Double figures for Marcus Camby. Long. Rebounded by Houston. Beautiful. Sprewell, touch pass. And a foul on Atlanta. Marcus Camby and Latrell Sprewell again putting a charge in the New York attack. Knicks lead 70-58.
Go to the playoffs, NBA.com.
Game 3 of the Eastern Conference semifinal series between the Hawks and Knicks. Atlanta had a brief 2-0 lead, but since then it's been all New York, once again getting high energy from their bench. Steve Smith with 17 leads the Atlanta attack. But it's been Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Marcus Camby, Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston, all leading the attack as Bill Van Gundy, the coach of head coach Jeff Van Gundy, has seen the Knicks be on the verge of taking a commanding 3-0 lead on the Hawks.
You'd think that Mr. Van Gundy would be having a little bit more fun with this comfortable 12-point lead.
It runs in the family, I believe. Don't forget, next Saturday, 12:30 Eastern, NBC begins its coverage of the French Open. Top men and women's players battle it out on the famed red clay of Roland Garros in Paris. The French Open next Saturday on NBC.
Very difficult for Atlanta right now. They trail by 13, but they're shooting 32% from the floor. That won't get it done on the road.
Well, they need one hot hand. Steve Smith was boiling at the break, hasn't scored since then, in foul trouble. They got to get him going again. 10 on the shot clock for Smith.
Smith misses, though. Mutombo and Sprewell fighting for the rebound.
When Latrell Sprewell is out rebounding Dikembe Mutombo, things are not going well for Lenny Wilkins' Hawks.
Allen Houston out, Larry Johnson back in the ball game.
The Hawks in this second half are shooting just 4 of 23. That's somewhere below 18%. Camby, Dudley, over Mutombo. Chris Dudley's been a contributor today.
When your shot goes in gracefully after it's been blocked, it's your day.
You know, and Blaylock and Smith got to know that if they can't win today, they can't win the series, and they got to make something happen. 5 on the clock. Not going to get it up.
No team's ever come back from 3-0, and Blaylock just beat the shot clock. Then a foul.
Chris Dudley is just having a magnificent afternoon. The ball movement, the quick dump down by Camby. Mutombo misreads it initially, but when you're 7-2 with those very long arms, you make up for a lot.
Well, how many times have you had a chance to say this? Chris Dudley has outscored the Atlanta Hawks by himself in this quarter. 4-1.
That second unit, so solid.
Well, that's a historical moment. Camby.
Whoa. Be careful and don't get hurt. There's a lot of basketball to be played.
Well, the inability to put the ball in the basket has been the undoing of the Hawks in this series. Crawford.
They've been working against the clock. They've had to play outside in. Crawford tried to throw it down.
Sprewell against Blaylock. Laid it in.
Crawford came with some authority, but hit the back of the rim, and it was a perfect outlet to a breaking Sprewell, and they have the Hawks on the ropes.
Timeout Atlanta. New York has scored 9 in a row.
The Los Angeles Lakers, the San Antonio Spurs. It's do or die for L.A. Behind Tim Duncan's 37 points yesterday, the Spurs stand on the verge of the conference finals. Now, with their backs against the wall, the Lakers must come up big at home to stay alive. The race for the rings, next.
Welcome back to Madison Square Garden. I'm Jim Gray. I'm here with the very proud father of the Knicks coach, Jeff Van Gundy's father, Bill Van Gundy. We had a shot of you a few minutes ago, Mr. Van Gundy. Were you praying?
Yes, I was. I do all the time.
Do you watch the game, or do you just pray through the game?
No, I watch everything, but I have timeouts.
Your son has been through an awful lot and all the rumors surrounding him. How has he dealt with it?
Well, look at him. He looks about 105, but he'll handle it. He's tough. Both of my kids are tough.
You coached, and obviously you coached both of your sons. What kind of advice have you given them in this situation?
You just got to do your job. You don't have any control over anything else except what you do.
Got to be very proud.
He's got a great staff and very loyal players, and he learned a hell of a lot from Pat.
Pat Riley is who you refer to.
Yes, I do. He's the best coach in the history of the NBA.
I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. Mr. Van Gundy, thank you for your time.
You.
There might be others who disagree, Tom.
I'm just glad Jim didn't make Coach Van Gundy cry.
I think Bill's pretty tough himself. You know, I think the old man is pretty tough himself. Meanwhile, the man who coached for 40 years, his prayers have been answered. The Hawks started the third quarter 0 for 10, and the fourth quarter 0 for 5.
Well, the Dudley free throw routine.
All right.
We're seeing it now. And here's a guy, we said earlier he has diabetes.
Now, what about his free throw form? Now, I want you to critique that.
This is beautiful. This is sheer grace. Chris Dudley, who does have the diabetic problem, he runs a camp for diabetic kids, free for them to come there. Has to limit it to 64 kids because of the doctor-nurse ratio he has to have per kid. And so it's a very special thing out in Vernonia, Oregon, a suburb of Portland.
Chris Dudley, a career 46% free throw shooter, hits 1 of 2.
When he makes it, Tom, it is a thing of beauty. Mutombo trying to get going, foul against Dudley. He'll go to the line, but I mean, the Atlanta Hawks are going to have to start making some shots, and they're going to have to force some turnovers to get some quick scores. They cannot come back, trade baskets, and think that they can work their way into this game.
Dudley, 2 for 2, 5 points in this quarter. All the other players on both teams are 2 for 12 and 4 points. Monday night special 1-hour series finale. One of NBC's all-time great must-see TV comedies, Mad About You, bows out Monday in a surprise-filled 1-hour finale. That's at 9/8 Central here on NBC.
Steve, you talked about the Hawks coming back. Steve Smith has got to be the guy. In the first half, he was 7 for 15 for 17 points. Second half, 0 for 4. Has not scored in the second half. Their best player, Steve Smith.
Ed Gray going to get called for the foul against Sprewell.
Well, the big question now as we head as you look at the Indiana closeout of Philadelphia, possible sweep if the Knicks hold on to this game 3. They line up again at the Garden tomorrow night. The big question becomes, will the Hawks check out of their hotel before the game?
Well, either way, they're going to check out.
The conference semifinal brackets here. The Knicks way up. Pacers have already moved on. Spurs about to do the same against the Lakers. Portland, Utah still very much up in the air.
Latrell Sprewell has 13 in the game.
Steve's been talking about this Atlanta comeback that I'm breathlessly waiting for, but they're 17 points down. Now 15. Are they going to score 15 more points the rest of the game? And that would be that the Knicks would have to go scoreless for it to become a ball game.
That was a start. A nice pass, a lob from Gray to Mutombo, who threw it down. Sprewell. Blaylock has it.
The Knicks have had droughts, and that's got them in trouble. But you know, the problem is that Ed Gray and the Atlanta Hawks have not been able to keep some pressure on them to make them nervous at all. Mutombo
came up short under pressure, and Camby has it. Childs. Camby threw it to no one, expecting Sprewell to go to the rim.
Good idea, but he passed up a good shot. As we take a look at what Dudley has done this quarter, as he is playing even with the Hawks.
Hey, the force is with him, you know, it's Star Wars thing.
Marcus Camby has shown some very nice offensive creativity passing-wise.
Ed Gray against Larry Johnson.
This is going up.
And down. 3 bodies hit the court as Gray drove baseline. Camby came over to help Larry Johnson. And the foul is called on LJ, his third.
Talking to Stan Albeck before the game, he said Ed Gray is absolutely the most confident young guy that he's met in a long, long time in his offensive ability. He said he'll go against anybody, and you know, he's just got to try to find a way to get a little bit more discipline in his game, grow up a little bit more. He thinks he's going to be a tough player for years to come. I know last year, and the first time that they played Portland, he came in and threw one down on a bonus that rocked the house. So you know that this kid can get some real energy going in the game, gets 2 free throws.
Shot only 29% during the regular season, but has shot much better than that in the playoffs. Up around 50% coming into today's game. Johnson to Dudley. And the offensive machine continues.
Why are they double teaming Larry Johnson? He can't have more than just a handful of points. Lenny Wilkins want to reset the defense.
Steve Smith has been blanked in this second half. Meanwhile, Chris Dudley scored 7 in the quarter, 11 in the game. Dudley with 2 more. Knicks bench has been potent today. Fast break points heavily in favor of the New York Knicks today, the new-look Knicks.
They've got into their transition game because of the terrific defense. Larry Johnson has emerged. Marcus Camby certainly a force at both ends. And the nice tap ahead of Latrell Sprewell, virtually unstoppable as a finisher when somebody's trying to stab down low.
Well, as we come out of the timeout, you take a look at the body language of the Atlanta Hawks. It's not good. Right now, they don't feel that they have a way to score the ball as the crowd brings their energy up for the defense of the New York Knicks. They've been working against the shot clock the entire second half. 5 for Grant Wall.
Misses the 3. Dudley and Mutombo locked up. Dikembe assessed the foul.
This has just been an incredibly disappointing series for Dikembe Mutombo. A classy individual who does so much to make the world a better place, but unfortunately, it hasn't been between the lines in this series.
Mutombo's going to come out of the ball game. Mark West is going to come in. Anthony Johnson is going to come in the ball game as well, as Chris Dudley will walk to the free throw line.
Dikembe Mutombo guaranteed a series win for the Hawks, and then after they lost game 1, guaranteed a win in game 2. No truth to the report that he's going to guarantee that.
Guarantees just aren't what they used to be, Tom. Hawks in 9, that's what he's predicting.
Well, we guarantee that Dateline will be on tonight at 8, 7 Central, and how far would you go on a dare? That's one of the subjects of tonight's Dateline, as Chris Dudley continues to pour in the points. He has a dozen against a playoff average of 1 point a game and a regular season average of 2 a game.
Backup center Mark West now in for the foul-plagued Dikembe Mutombo, and offensively challenged Dikembe Mutombo this afternoon. But West is one of those guys who can come in and put some beef on somebody and try to slow down this offensive barrage that the Knicks have thrown at the Hawks.
Is offensively challenged a nice way to say he's having a bad day?
7 points, though he does have 16 rebounds, Mutombo.
Ed Gray steal.
Smith looking for his first field goal of the second half. Missed again. Rebounded by Sprewell. You know, the story of this New York Knicks team is pretty remarkable when you think about it. On the verge of taking the semifinal series, the first 8 team to do it. They had Patrick Ewing, who did so much work for the Players Union. After the lockout, coming in not really in shape, battling injuries all season long as Larry Johnson is fouled. They tried to integrate Sprewell as a new player into their offense and to their defense. He was not happy with coming off the bench. They had, and he was injured for a while. They had, of course, the controversy over Camby coming in, his work ethic. Oakley, a popular player, being traded. Allen Houston looking for his role. With Ewing injured last year, he'd been the go-to guy, now having to share it not only with Ewing, but also with Sprewell. And Ernie Grunfeld being fired in April. And to all this come together to really reemerge as a new-look team and to advance this far in the playoffs is a pretty remarkable story.
And amazing how it all came together at the time that they took Ernie Grunfeld's scalp. Certainly not a good sign, you know, for corporate shuffling there. But this style of play was Ernie's vision. You know, it was his dream to bring in Sprewell and Camby, and right now they're paying off with their great athleticism.
And the turnaround began, I guess, down in Miami in the regular season when they came back from 20 points down to win the game, and seemingly have been a different team since then. They had to fight and scratch just barely to make the playoff. And there's the block shot by Camby. Sprewell, that could be a goaltend. Score the goal for Sprewell and a foul.
The defense making it happen. The crowd here rising to its feet in support of the team. The quick outlet pass, and Sprewell, who crosses over so magnificently. Foolish goaltend there, and a three-point play opportunity.
And the fans in New York have embraced Latrell Sprewell from the outset. He came in after the choking incident with P.J. Carlissimo. The reception he got around the league was not good, but here in New York, they embraced Latrell from the very outset, and now here late in the season, he has become a tremendous player for the Knicks.
He's got a real chance to be MVP of the championship series if the Knicks go on and win it all, as a lot of Knicks fans think they're going to do now.
Gray lost it out of bounds.
You have them in the championship series now. Your New York Knicks.
How about my Knicks?
Johnson out of the ball game. Rick Brunson in as LJ gives him that celebration with the signal that this one is in the hopper.
Even Herb Williams is doing the LJ now.
That's depressing.
Crawford fouled with 2:53 remaining. Well, Patrick Ewing, you know, especially stood by Jeff Van Gundy, and when the rumors came that Phil Jackson was going to be the next coach, he said, not for me. I'll be on my way to Miami or someplace else. He stood by Jeff Van Gundy all the way. And if Jeff Van Gundy loses his job now, it's a travesty. I mean, this man has done a tremendous job.
He's a fabulous coach and person. He works with everybody, not only the players, but the media, the corporate sponsors. Just really gets the job done now that they're winning. But it's so rare to have the loyalty of the players for a coach in today's game, where usually they're the first guy to dump on the coach. It's his fault.
Absolutely right. Dudley. 14 points.
Hanging around the rim, got 10 and a quarter, and the crowd is going nuts here in New York.
Steve, I'm still waiting for that Atlanta run.
Well, Bill, it's not coming today. I think the Hawks have flown, and, you know, it just continues in the series. They cannot score, and if you can't score, as McLeod scores, you can't win. And that's been the story for Lenny Wilkins' team. They've had shots. They just have not been able to see them go down.
Herb Williams, in his 18th season, who has appeared in over 1,100 NBA games, is about ready to come in. That's akin to the victory cigar. Camby.
Tom, we did the first game of the season here, Miami at the Knicks, and Marcus Camby was an absolute non-factor and showed no signs whatsoever. Now he is arguably their second best player behind Latrell Sprewell with the contributions that Marcus Camby's been making.
Herb Williams.
Marcus Camby has 13 points and 6 boards, countless intimidations, a number of blocks. Sprewell to the bench, but it's been Marcus Camby just doing so many things.
Well, New York led only 6 points at the half, but they turned up the defense on Atlanta to start both the third and fourth quarters. Atlanta was 0 for 10 to start the third, 0 for 6 to start the fourth. In each quarter, they went over 5 minutes without a field goal, and that sealed the deal for the New York Knicks. The Atlanta Hawks have never advanced past the second round, and New York about to go 7-1 against Atlanta all time in the playoffs.
And the worst thing about it is they put themselves in a position as Childs bust in, can't finish. And when you're down 3-0, nobody's come back from that. The Philadelphia 76ers gave it a valiant try this afternoon to get started. The Hawks, if they continue to play like this, will be eliminated tomorrow night.
Tom, how about the fact that everybody talked about parity in this year's NBA playoffs? In the second round, we're looking at 3 out of 4 sweeps.
Right.
So there really is a major separation between some of these young and developing teams. The
Indiana Pacers swept Philadelphia closing it out today, and they await the winner of this series. The conference finals in the East would start a week from today. Jeff Shepard, the rookie from Kentucky, enters the game for the Atlanta Hawks. And meanwhile, Chris Dudley, to a giant ovation, goes to the New York bench.
Terrific.
Fouled out with 14 points.
Fouled out. When you got an offensive game like Chris Dudley, forget the defense and just wait for him to bring you the ball. The cheers of Dudley resounding. It brings a little smirk to Chris's face.
A little sheepish smile at that. I don't think he's heard that too often. Final minutes. The Knicks will be looking for the sweep tomorrow night. That game will be on Turner. Canby with a jam.
The ball movement, we talked about it from the very beginning. Everything warm and fuzzy for the Knicks again.
The real story will be how do the Hawks respond to this beating this afternoon, and whether they can come back and even make the series up to avoid the broom, as Ewing and the Knicks feel very good in this position.
There were three potential sweeps today. The first one happened, Indiana over Philadelphia. Not three potential sweeps, but New York a chance to go up 3-0 looking for the sweep tomorrow night. And then the Lakers facing elimination today. What's your prediction?
I think the Lakers are toast. I mean, you know, as much as they have tried to bring themselves together as a team, they still don't have the continuity at either end of the floor, and they're an offensive team that has not been able to accelerate their offense against the San Antonio Spurs. Very confident team.
Herb Williams missing the shot. Brunson had his rejected.
No chemistry for the Lakers whatsoever. Why they don't dump it into Shaq time and time again and make the game easy for everybody. Instead, everybody's intent on playing their own individual game.
And the New York Knicks will take a commanding 3-0 lead on the Atlanta Hawks, looking for the sweep here at the Garden tomorrow night. New York had 5 players in double figures. Houston and Sprewell 17 each. Canby had 15, Dudley 14, and Larry Johnson 12. 17 each for Atlanta, for Long and for Smith, but Steve Smith had 17 all in the first half, did not score in the second half. And so it's 90-78, and the Atlanta Hawks are an endangered species. Back to the Garden for final comments in a moment.
Welcome back to the Garden. The Knicks victorious. They now have a 3-0 lead against the Hawks. I'm now joined courtside here by Latrell Sprewell. 31 points in games 1 and 2, 17 points today. What has enabled you to become so confident here in this playoffs that we didn't see in the regular season?
Well, I just think collectively as a team, we're playing a lot better. You know, it's playoff time. It's time to win. If you lose, there's no tomorrow. So, you know, we got to lay everything on the line right here.
Do you think sweep? Is that what now comes into your mind? And how do you guard against starting to think about the Pacers?
Well, the only thing we have to do is come out, defend, and move the ball on the offensive end like we're capable of, get guys wide open looks because they are double teaming. I think if we do that, we'll be fine. We just need to come out and set the tone defensively.
Spree, congratulations. You're playing great.
Thank you.
All right, let's send it back over to Tom Hammond.
Thank you, Jim, as the New York defense holds the Hawks to 31% shooting, only 21% in the second half. And the New York bench outscored the Atlanta bench 46-22 and out-rebounded them 27-9. Final score, New York 90, Atlanta 78. New York now up 3-0. Stay tuned for more NBA action. The Lakers and the Spurs coming up next. For Steve Jones, Bill Walton, and Jim Gray, Tom Hammond saying so long from New York. This has been the NBA on NBC.
He pushed the limits. He broke the rules. There was only one place for Jesse Ventura to go. Politics. The people rule! The story of the man who landed on top after everyone counted him out.
My governor can pile drive your governor.
The Jesse Ventura story, NBC tonight.